of nutrition research in India. In fact, Professor Swaminathan and him are contemporaries, one spearheading the agriculture research and allied activities, whereas Professor Gopalan was more into the nutrition sphere. He was the former Director General of Indian Council of Medical Research and Director, National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. He started the National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau that made immense contribution to nutrition research in India. In fact, recently he passed away in 2019 at the age of 101. Soon, Professor immediately instituted this lecture series in the name of him to honor Professor Gopalan. In fact, his daughter is along with us today. And the first lecture was given by Dr. Swaminathan. And this year, we have the privilege of Dr. Vinod Paul, Member NITI Aayog, Government of India, to give the lecture. I request Dr. Prabhavati to give a brief introduction of the brief intro about the chair, Dr. Elisabeth, to you.
Thank you. Good morning to dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. It's my pleasure to introduce the chair, Ms. Elisabeth Faure. She is the country representative and director of UN World Food Prize, India. She has over 18 years of experience in development and humanitarian work across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. She previously served as director of WFP London office, focusing on advocacy and partnership. In Bolivia, she led efforts to strengthen food-based social protection systems and emergency preparedness. In Guyana, she coordinated a large-scale response to the Ebola endemic. And she holds an MPhil degree from Oxford University and a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Now I hand over the floor to Ms. Elisabeth Faure and request her to conduct the proceedings and chair the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I feel honored to be chairing this session today. So I would like to introduce Dr. Vinod. I'd like to introduce our colleague who will be giving this lecture. So Dr. Vinod Paul is a renowned medical scientist and public health exponent. He was a faculty member at AIIMS in New Delhi for over 3 decades. And he has been appointed as a member of NITI Aayog in 2017. He leads the health, nutrition, and HRD verticals. And Dr. Paul played a key role in formulating a number of initiatives, including Ayushman Bharat PMJ, Health and Wellness Center Scheme, Poshan Abhiyan, and he also chairs the crucial COVID-19 response group, including the Empowered Group on Medical Infrastructure and NEGVAC. So with over 400 scientific publications and an H-index of 62, he's recognized among the world's top 2% scientists in pediatrics. Dr. Paul is a recipient of prestigious awards for his exceptional contributions to biomedical research and family health. So a real honor to have Dr. Paul deliver this important lecture today. And after this, we will have a quick Q&A, depending on the time frame. So looking forward to your participation.
Namaste, good morning. Ms. Elisabeth Faure, Dr. Swaminathan, Ms. Mighty Gopalan, Dr. Ramji, distinguished friends, colleagues, scientists, and the family of Dr. M S Swaminathan Research Foundation. friends, it's an unusual honor for me to stand here and to be able to share some ideas. Today, this opportunity for me is unique because it is related to two icons of our great nation. Dr. M S Swaminathan, whose foundation is doing a stellar work, and this event is being organized at the foundation amongst the friends and families and the fraternity of the foundation and others whose life it touches. And then the talk is in memory of Dr. Gopalan, another icon of India. So it's double blessing for me to stand here in front of you. I have picked up a very simple issue related to some of the other connected issues, but a focus issue of complementary feeding, because the non-optimality of complementary feeding for our children bothers me as a pediatrician, as a citizen, and even more so as a policy enabler. My task at the NITI Aayog includes addressing issues such as suboptimal feeding. And my simple message truly is that a lot more needs to be done about complementary feeding in our nation. I'd like to make this case in front of this august audience. Let me begin from the obvious, and maybe that also sets a stage for other deliberations today in this event. I'm talking about stunting and wasting. Just to put the numbers right, though all of you would perhaps know, we classify 35.5% under 5 children as stunted based on the WHO growth chart. And the data comes from the NFHS surveys. Some decline from 38% to 36% over a period of 3 to 4 years. Wasting static around 20%, and severe wasting is also static at around 7 to 8%. What I like to now show to you is that there is a dynamic, slow but steady decline in stunting. And this is to bring in the longish perspective to this important outcome, developmental outcome of our children. And based on this, of course, there are issues and outcomes related to adults. So if you go back to 1993 surveys, and this is a work, unpublished work from IAV, 58%. Then 54% around 98, 48% 2005, 38 in 2015, and 2019, 2020, 21, we are at 36%. So the first point is, yes, the stunting rate is coming down steadily, and it has seen a quarter reduction over a period of about 25 to 30 years. So this is something critical, because there are notions and opinions that say it's not changeable, leave it alone. Of course, we do not know how further down it can technically go in terms of biology, but the short point here is that over a period of time, stunting rates have come down. I'd like you to look at this carefully. This is the WHO growth chart. This is height for age. This is the density or proportion, or let's say the distribution. This is WHO growth chart. This is the data 1992-93, this one. Okay, you can see that the peak is here and this is the most recent data, this is 1921, the peak is somewhat, 15-16 data is this one. So peak has gone higher, and then the distribution has shifted to the right, toward the positive. So the entire population, based on these systematic surveys, you all conduct them to the best of our ability, you can see a clear trend that as a population of children of today has moved in the right direction, in a way, the right direction, okay, toward the positive. Of course, it is still far away from the notional peak here in comparison to the global growth chart that we today accept, but the fact remains that there is a gradual shift in the right direction. What is more interesting is, what does it mean in terms of addition of height to an average child? And here, for a child who is 30 years, okay, 30 years average child age, there is an increase in height by 3.2 centimeters. I want us to remember that the children of 1993 cohort, under 5 children, vis-a-vis 1921 cohort, are taller at the age of 30 months by 3 centimeters. So the length has gradually increased, and of course it may have increased more in certain socioeconomic groups, etc. That's not available. This is work in progress, and I'm grateful to the team whose data I am able to share with you. What is happening in other countries? This is Western Pacific, this is Americas, this is Europe, and these are the other regions. Okay, Africa is in black, and this one is Eastern Mediterranean, and this one is South Asia. It shows consistently in these regions there is a decline, and some decline even in these quote-unquote more developed regions. The point I wish to make here is, what are the numbers in other societies in comparison to what you saw in India in our region? So we are looking at something like 36%, shall we say, here, India, and these regions are below 10. Is below 10 a norm? We don't know. We can discuss this biologically, whether it's possible or not, should it be done or not. That's not the issue today. Just to tell you where the numbers belong, that in some of the other regions which are more developed in terms of affluence and opportunities, there the proportion of stunting among children, corresponding children, is typically below 10%. But also notice that in some of these regions, this is Western Pacific in particular, there has also been further decline, and there is a slower decline here, as you would expect in such a situation. Just to let you know what the comparator numbers are in different regions. Here is a little more granularity, but only for a few nations. So this is India, stunting rate, China 5%, US 3 to 4%, Brazil 7%, Bangladesh 28%, South Africa 21%, Sri Lanka in our region is 17%, Mexico 13%. Below 15 is what you see that should be hoped for, below 10 hoped for. Biologically possible or not? Appropriate to make that happen or not? I'm not going into that debate. I'm only saying, as part of the humanity has stunting rates compared to a standard, a presumed appropriate standard. Again, no caveats here. Whatever debates around which standard we should, I'm not getting into it. Accepting for the time being those standards, you can see that there is a relatively higher abnormality, quote-unquote abnormality, that pervades our children. So you've already seen this decline from 58% to 36%, but if you plot, and that's what Drishti, the team focal person, did it, if you advance this, or at the current rate of decline, which is 2.2 per annum, then by 2047 we would be somewhere around 19, 20, 18 at the current rate of decline. Current means between 1993 and 2020, roughly 27-year decline rate. If you take that as the rate for future 25 years, we would be having a stunting rate of about 18%. And by 70, by that token, epidemiologically speaking, genetic potential we don't know, etc., it would be 10%. So we would be in the zone that I was talking about, somewhere here below 15 and somewhere here close to 10. You could just keep this in mind. My point is, can this be accelerated in the next 20 to 25 years? What is it that we are not doing optimally at this moment in terms of nutrition, in terms of disease protection, in terms of taking care of our adolescent girls in general, pre-pregnancy situation and so on, and that's something that we should think about. What is the plastic part that we can, of undernutrition, that we can influence by safe, evidence-based interventions taken to scale? So that's one thought that I leave here as I show you this data. Now, the next part is the following. I want you to look at this slide very carefully. This is one of the most favorite and most enlightening data set that I have ever encountered and I use. This is from NFHS 4. This could be NFHS 3. This could be NFHS 5. Slight variations, but there is a story out here. The story for stunting is as follows, and you can have the same, similar one for underweight. I'm showing stunting. The focus is stunting. That means length for age. This is at birth. This is age in months. This is proportion. At birth, about 15-16% children are stunted by the WHO criteria. The stunting rises a bit and then settles to about 20% in the NFHS 4 situation, and then something dramatic happens. It rises exponentially, rises, and somewhere here becomes more than double of what you saw here, and then settles down somewhere around 40%. This is, to me, profound epidemiology, profound, deep. There must be reasons why children are stunted at birth. And then there must be something happening dramatically after 6 months of age that this proportion rises. We all can imagine that there are normal babies who are non-stunted by the same criteria. They also could become stunted with time. There are those who are stunted at birth but will pick up. All that is happening. But this is a snapshot of the story of stunting across age. So there must be things that matter prior to birth: genetics, epigenetics, food, nutrition, opportunities, infection, inflammation. Today I'll not go in that direction. We have intervention data available for how we can change that. Today I'm not touching that. That's for another day. But I'm intrigued by the fact that somewhere here we instead of perhaps moving in this direction, we still move in the upward direction. There seems to be something still bothering our babies, even after they are in front of us physically, in front of families, communities, governments, policy makers, scientists, and so on, and all of us. And then something dramatic happens here, which then takes the proportion of stunted children higher and higher. To me, there are two things that operate here as a pediatrician. One, a 6-month-old child becomes mobile, is being fed something or putting things into the mouth and exposed to increasing number of individuals, and therefore infections play an important role. Second, this is a time when breastfeeding is no more sufficient. By any estimates of energy needs, and more food has to be administered, which goes by the name of complementary food, semi-solid food, in addition to breast milk, because breast milk at this point in time will probably give not more than 350 to 400 kilocalories, and the baby already needs about 500 to 600, maybe more, and then rising need, and the breast milk related energy would remain static, where the needs are rising, so the gap happens. So to me, these are the two reasons, and I'm happy to discuss if there is a third reason, and there could be. This is something which is, as I said, happening in front of all of us, and it's not changing. So instead of 40% in NFHS 5, it's 38%, 37%. That's what you saw. This is something that I hope we can change, and I want this thought to pervade scientists and, academics and people who change things on the ground. I also remind all of you and myself again that typically the height at 2 years already determines the adult height. And my teacher, Dr. Ghai, told me, possibly, and teacher of teachers, Soumya's teacher, my teacher, that remember, 2 years height multiplied by 2, and that's the height of an adult. It's broadly true. Adolescence offers a little more opportunity to push the envelope, but it's already set by 2 years, and it works. If you do a little maths, you will realize. And adult height in classical literature and learning is known to be associated with productivity and income as of now. We can again discuss about caveats into this, but broadly we believe that adult height has a relationship to productivity, the work that you can do, etc., and it goes along with income levels. So I'm very concerned, and I want us to be also concerned, and I hope you miss a few minutes of your sleep today, that this is something which is a bane of our nation, and it has to change. It's not only the NFHS survey that shows this, what I demonstrated to you. The CNNS survey, which was driven by academics of high repute of our nation in 2018-19, shows exactly the same data in terms of the trend. Okay, so this is stunting here, and this is a 6 month time. You can see how it is rising and rising and rising, and this is 2 years point. The same thing, different data set, more accurate estimate. Just to tell you that the wasting being red is high, and then it settles down, and the same phenomenon you can see in NFHS, which I did not show, and underweight, which is a combination of sort, follows broadly the line of stunting. So underweight and stunting, 6 months something happens critically, we need to address this. Wasting takes a slightly different trajectory, but wasting is again essentially a problem of the first 6 months, and that means low birth weight babies, feeding of the low birth weight babies. I'll avoid going in that direction today for the sake of maintaining focus on a very specific idea that I wish to bring forth to you. Okay, to me there are three reasons, broad three classes of reasons, underpinnings of an undernourished child. I would be undernourished if I am born small, because if you follow the cohorts of small children, you know that they tend to remain below the cohort, the normal cohorts. Again, whether they should pick up or not, how soon they should pick up, that's another story. But if you measure my weight for age or height for age, then I am going to be on the lower trajectory, and this is based on data from Bob Black and others, and Indian data as well. I believe this contributes to about 22 to 25% of undernourishment. Illnesses and pneumonia, again global literature and Indian literature, indicates broadly that a quarter of undernourishment can be explained on the basis of illnesses, which also means the following: you can correct everything else in terms of nutrition, let's say, and even other issues, but if the babies are falling sick, even normal babies, affluent family children, they will lose weight and their growth may be stymied for a period of time. And then, of course, 50 to 55% issue is about food, intake of food, because intake of food is critical and obvious. I'll focus on the third bullet today. I believe suboptimal feeding, which is about half of the undernourishment causing condition, is broadly in our nation today, is a problem of lack of knowledge of what to feed, when to start feeding, how to feed, how to augment, rather than non-availability of food in the household. I think this is caused by lack of support, lack of education, lack of a Janandolan, lack of and not having social norms to push feeding for children in an optimum way. Food insufficiency must be a small part, and let's remind ourselves that under children of less resourced families are also getting take-home ration through the ICDS system. Approximately half the children of India are covered through that system as well. What is food? The food for a child. What is the child's food? Breast milk. There are 4 indicators or 4 specific markers to be achieved. 1, initiate breastfeeding within 1 hour. Number 2, exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months and continuing breastfeeding for 2 years. And the 4th one I want to focus, and I want attention on this, though I'm not going in detail, is to ensure assisted feeding for the low birth weight babies, and part of that assisted feeding is expression of milk and feeding with spoon till child can directly take from the breast, coupled with augmenting the care and feeding and security and reducing infection through kangaroo mother care. It's one interconnected strategy and expectation. So breastfeeding has 4 markers, 3 of them are tracked, the 4th one at present is not even being tracked. It's difficult to track, but we need ideas on that. The next part of the food after 6 months is breastfeeding continues, but you start feeding semi-solid food. And I gave you the reason why it is needed, because energy needs cannot be met from breast milk alone, and this food is called complementary food, or in Hindi we call it Purak Ahar. Now a little bit again on feeding of small babies. You need extra time, extra care, extra effort for feeding small babies. Still, the norm of what food to be given is breast milk. If not there, then there are other alternates. There are standard guidelines available for small baby feeding. Kangaroo mother care is an important part. Skills at times to express breast milk and feed with spoon would be required. Even in home settings, still these babies can directly feed themselves. The idea of putting this here is a food for thought, that the other challenge other than complementary is feeding small babies within hospitals, when they are in hospital, but more importantly after they are discharged from hospital, because then the care is expected to be provided by the family, supported by the community workers and community and society as a whole. Again, that is a discussion that we will do another day. Let me now move on to the main theme of complementary feeding and related issues. So the expectation is that all babies should be started on complementary feeding at 6 months of age. Used to be 4 months, olden times. 6 months of age is what the today's guidelines, the national and global guidelines are. What is the food to be given to the child? Just to put that perspective, that food should comprise of a cereal, and in our society largely wheat or rice, and you can add millets, dal, so a protein source, typical protein source in our all societies roughly, some dash of vegetable or fruit, seasonal, some are more useful fruits such as banana and papaya, need to be given mashed, fat source on oil, visible fat in any form, milk, indeed milk, very important as a source. So these are the 4 or 5 groups that are generally the plate, on the plate of the baby. Of course, to this you can add sugar as you like, jaggery as you like, and fish and egg and other such food if you accept them, if you like them. But that is really not a must. This would work, but this will also be useful. We should not forget that take-home ration is half of the child's need around 6, 8, 9 months of age. That also has to be fed to the child. It's already a food which is ready to be used. It has a combination of the above, but should be given and fed to the child. Fed to the child and will meet hopefully half of the complementary food need. There are various forms in which this food is mixed up. Typically cereal and dal can be mixed into in the north khichdi, etc. I'll come to what is popular here. And this one is an extra one. Oil has to go on top of this, and milk has to be fed without dilution, using never a bottle with a spoon, to be fed with spoon or cup. The take-home ration for children is meant to provide around 500 kilocalories and about 12 to 15 gram of protein, which is meeting roughly half of the energy needs of a child at 1 year. The nation spends a lot of money on this, and first and foremost should be ensured that the children actually consume it. In Tamil Nadu, a complementary food basket could be between 6 to 8 months. This is information we collected from the various WCD departments of states, and we were told here it is rice kanji, jawarsi, upma, sadam, etc. And then you can add other items. You know it better than me, including pongal and idli, etc., etc. This is a food that is normally taken, if you look at the entire one or the other, or more than one or the others, is the food that's the household food one way or the other. And that's what the child needs. There's nothing like a special food, THR apart. There's nothing unusual about this food. And same in Maharashtra, it is about rice, it's about rice and milk, it's about wheat and milk, it's about banana, it's about jowar, it's about, and so on. And likewise in Uttar Pradesh, it is sattu or a khichdi and so on. The short point I'm making is that the food for 6-month-old child, 1-year-old child, 2-year-old child is really nothing but the food that is typically available in households and typically available through the PDS system as well. 80 crore individuals have access to PDS system, where part of it is supplied in any case. So affordability, availability, I hope and I believe, is not a major issue. The concept of energy density I'm mentioning because this is missing from the discourse, that when you add fat, you get for 1 gram 9 kilocalories, and 1 gram of sugar is only 4 kilocalories. 1 spoon is 20 kilocalories for sugar, and 1 spoon of fat is 45 kilocalories for the child, which means that when you add fat in one form or the other, or butter on top, the child can take less and yet have more. And we know this as basics, but this needs to be percolated. We'll come to that in a little while. Consistency of complementary feeding is semi-solid or thick. Amount typically half to 1 katori. Katori is accepted as a measure across the country by and large. After 1 year, it becomes 1 to 2 katoris. 6 months to 1 year, 3 times. After 1 year, 5 times. And then it takes time to feed the child, giving optimum amount. Child eats slowly. Child needs to be fed frequently because has a small stomach. Child should get energy dense feeding so that the small stomach can accommodate more energy and fulfill the need for optimum amount. We must remember that in India, because we are dependent on rice in particular and wheat in particular, the bulk of our food is big. A lot has to be consumed for us to be able to get the right energy into the baby, and therefore a concept of energy density via fat is safe and should be promoted. And of course there are other foods, the so-called non-vegetarian foods, which have a more energy density. So we have a disadvantage feeding school children largely on rice. Again, it's bulk, hell of a lot of bulk for small children for the same amount of calories. This is an issue, but nothing much can be done except to find ways of making it energy dense, and which basically would mean use fat or use good protein source, and of course use the milk products in particular, and egg. Moving further, so this is what should happen. What actually happens is here, our report card, 2019-21. Initiation of breastfeeding within hour, 1 hour 41%. Why is it not 90%? Exclusive breastfeeding at 4 to 5 months, 50%, not 96%. Complementary feeding started or being given between 6 to 8 months, 46%. 54% of our babies are not even offered any semi-solid food today, 2023. And I'll come to adequate diet, which is 11%, which is a mix of food groups, frequency, and so on. And that indicator is abysmally pathetic at 11%. Are we improving in these key indicators of feeding of children? Initiation of breastfeeding jumped from 26% to 41% in 10 years, largely in consonance with institutional deliveries, because we could actively promote early breastfeeding by nurses and doctors. It was like a revolution in a way. But then we have lost steam here. So clearly one direction for us is to push this, and I hope we all will work in that direction. Exclusive breastfeeding at 4 to 5 months also improved in this phase of 10 years, and then a little more improvement, but still far away from the 100% saturation goal. Complementary feeding starting, 53% has actually declined. If you believe all this, short point is we continue to be below 50% of starting offering a semi-solid food, which includes, by the way, THR. An adequate diet indicator, I'll come to that in a little more detail later, is static. It's not changing. Okay, now I'll rush through some of the variations and then move toward what we need to do. Children under the age of 3 years who were breastfed within 1 hour, in these slides, the 2015 data is blue, and red is the more recent data. So you can see that it's a mixed picture, but most of the time the blue is taller than the red. So, that's the way you see it, and it is static here. In most states, it is a decline of sort, right here. In some steady holding. If you disaggregate this data in terms of change, then this is what you see. This is India, minimal change or no change. These are the states where improvement happened. It is Chandigarh, it is Uttarakhand, this is Rajasthan, improvement. And then we lost ground in several other states. The mixed picture. Coming to the second indicator, children under the age of 6 months exclusively breastfed. Now these are cohort as a whole, but data I showed you was at 4 and 5 months. I'll explain that in a minute. The red is the later data, and you can see often the red is taller than the blue. That means the progress in the positive direction, which is reflected at the national data as well. A very significant jump. We should be proud of that. 55% has become 64%, as you can see. Change. Most states have seen a change in the positive direction from negligible to dramatic in some states, including Uttar Pradesh, where exclusive breastfeeding at 6 months has become more popular and more compliance is being seen here. I want you to look at this figure carefully, please. This is NFHS 5. Age and practice. So exclusive breastfeeding to start with is as high as 75, 78%, not 100%, sure. But it tends to decline, even by second, third month has declined. By fourth, fifth month, 49%, and that's what I refer to this one, 6 to 8 months, 46%, this is 4 to 5 months, half. So already there is a loss of exclusiveness of breastfeeding, so there must be a true action to be taken in this regard, and let's be alert to this. You have another indicator out here. This is receiving complementary feeding. Semi-solid feed which actually should not exist here. But there must be situations, and sometimes even medical situations. Now it starts to pick up here already, second, third month, should not have happened. Even if some baby needed, it must stay here. And then the nation, the society is already changing practice from 4 months to 6 months. Already there is a shift, early introduction, which would potentially be associated with some extra illness episodes. At 6 to 8 months, though, when it should start, it is at 46%. By the end of the year, it is still 65%, and then it is static. We don't go to 80%, 90% at least by the 2 years. And what we should have seen is in the 9th to 10th month, let's say here, starting much more, and by 9th, 10th month here, we should be here. That behavior change as a society does not happen, has not happened. Not breastfeeding is static, 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 and then of course it picks up, but that's another story. So 6 to 8 months children receiving semi-solid feed. Now that's really about complementary feeding. So let's start focusing like 5-6 minutes now. Complementary feeding, blue is old, red is new, slight increase that you noticed, and you can see that in most states, yes, some increase, and again a mixed picture. If you visualize this by states, some states have gone in the negative direction. States like Tripura, Delhi, Himachal have moved in the positive direction, Orissa, Maharashtra. So again a mixed picture, dynamic change is occurring. The overall change is modest at 3%. I now move to the last indicator, which is an indicator called minimum acceptable diet, or the adequate feeding that I was mentioning to. It has two parts to this. One is dietary diversity. Is the child being fed 4 food groups, the familiar 4 groups? And then is the frequency optimum? Frequency for a breastfed baby, 6 to 8 months is twice, and then it becomes 3 times. For a baby who is non-breastfed, it is 4 times. So minimum acceptable diet is when these 2 criteria are fulfilled. What is the data from CNNS survey? Only 6.4% children of India between the age of 6 to 23 months, only 6.4 were meeting this indicator. What is the indicator from NFHS? 11.3%. Previous NFHS? 9%. What do you make of it? And the highest proportion of meeting this criteria was in Meghalaya, 30% roughly, West Bengal 25%, Goa 21%, and then the lowest one was as low as 6% and so on. Tamil Nadu is here, 16%. Not bad, but not good enough. The short point I am making is why, if food groups are important, frequency is important, why and how we are stuck with such a low rate of optimality on this criteria for complementary feeding. Half the time we don't even start, and then when we give between 6 months to 23 months, we don't offer the food groups, and we don't offer optimum quantity and frequency. This is an all-pervading situation. This is district level data of the same marker. On the periphery, yes, reasonably better, but this blue itself is, just about 20%, few states and few districts, and much of India is afflicted by this poor state of feeding. So this is the change from 9% to 11% nationally, and you have already alluded to this. If you see, and that I want to highlight, the states which made a difference in these 2 cycles are, other than Union Territory, Orissa. Orissa moved by 12 points from 8 or 9% to about 20%. So it can change. In 4 years, it has seen a change. Himachal, changed by 8 points. From 11, I think they became 19. Goa changed. Delhi changed. Delhi is a big one in a way, 11%, 11 point. Punjab changed 6 points, etc. and some others went the other way around. The short point I am making is that there is a scope for improvement in pushing this particular indicator, which is so critical. And you have seen that there is a scope for pushing the semi-solid introduction in a big way in a short period of time. And by the way, it's happening in similar, some of the same states as you have seen there, Himachal, Orissa in particular. I plead therefore that this indicator can also change, other than saying that it must be very, very high. And that is the main reason why I thought I share this story with you. Here is a report card on how the rich versus poor are doing on 3 important indicators. Exclusive breastfeeding, the poorest quintile has 68% prevalence and the richest is 68%. Total equality. Nobody is 80%, by the way. You would expect the richest to be 80%, no. You would expect middle classes to be 90%, no. This is the way we operate. Introduction of semi-solids at 6 to 8 months, we poorest 44%, richest for 56%. Some more education, but even the techies and the most educated, I think there is an issue here. I like us to think how this can change. And the adequate diet parameter, 11% here and 14% here. Equality. Even well-off families are not feeding their babies optimally. If you go by this well-tested 2-point criteria on complementary feeding and why, it's really not in our culture, it seems, to do a good job and a timely job. I hope this can change. And at least in part, this would explain the post-6-month rise in undernourishment and stunting that you see, at least in part. There must be other reasons. But I am pleading for one simple thing: feed the children optimally, in time. And that is a message. That's what you all preach and teach. But look at the report card that I am showing you. It's a pain for all of us. And I feel responsible on behalf of government to do something more, but then it's about the whole of society response. So repeating again, adequate diet, poorest 11%, richest 14%, not 35%. Forget 60%, forget 40%. And not starting to feed. 45% of the richest also don't feed their children. Don't even start feeding the children at the right age. So much for IYCF promotion and this and that and so on. So much for all of the work that we all have done so far. So there is a problem. When to start is not well known. What to give, the notion of multiple items to give, which of course are part of the normal food that you cook. Automatically that sattu has more than 2 things, khichdi has more than 2 things and so on. How often to give, how much to give, and the amounts I have mentioned, and how to make the food energy dense. These are the missing communications and behaviors that I notice. And also another one is that it takes time to feed a child. We all know it. But then can we help the families in doing so? Does it really work if you work on counseling? Here is a use case. This is a baby here, roughly 1 year old, of one of my officers, Central Services officer. This baby was actually doing well because she is on the green channel. This is the WHO chart. The green channel is 50th percentile. And then I said, no, तुम खिलाते क्या हो, थोड़ा बातचीत करा, ये खिलाते हैं. मैंने कहा कोशिश करो. He has heard this presentation and related presentation something like 20 times. So I said, now act on this if you believe. So they really thought about it and they saw that there was a scope for feeding more often, taking more time, and this effort led to increase in weight. Came diarrhea, another story that if you get illness, even the rich people's babies will lose their weight. That happened, and then lost track, picked up again, ARI happened, something happened, etc. So you can change if you work hard. Somebody may say you are talking about weight. but weight can become fat in the body, sure. But I'm now showing you the length of this, the same child. Was doing well, 50th percentile, but as the weight improved, the length went to 85th percentile. So the stunting, hidden stunting went away. Now this is the way a pediatrician would look at it. And the earlier I was trying to show you as a public health person. I also am showing here that the child didn't go fat because the BMI was in the normal range, just to allay the fear that little more food is not going to make the arteries clogged. We need some more science on that as well. But then fundamental issues about feeding are alive. So to me, it is really about behavior change, behavior change, behavior change. And therefore, I call upon making more effort on behalf of all the stakeholders. One-to-one counseling of mother, father, and family. By workers, by all of us. Using the tools that we can use. Group counseling, because it has become a social norm, and therefore mothers groups, parents groups, demonstrations, Swachh Abhiyan like of work, Jan Andolan, engaging NGOs, urban local bodies, Panchayati Raj institution, mothers groups, teachers, youth groups, religious leaders, cooperatives. We need to come together. And I urge you that in the ensuing Poshan Mahas, 1st September to 30th September, please in your own way, because you're also representing institutions, promote complementary feeding apart from other messages that you may be giving, because this is so critical. It should become a Jan Andolan through direct messaging, social media, TV, community radio, hoardings, theater, community events. Let's make this visible. You don't see hoardings on complementary feeding. You at times see on breastfeeding. But complementary feeding hoardings are never there. And therefore, also as researchers, we need to demonstrate enablers of ensuring high compliance of adequate diet on a large scale through implementation research and compliance with other indicators. Strengthening the complementary feeding content in the curriculum of nurses, doctors, dietitians, social workers. There also there is a lack of knowledge. Improving counseling skills in this area, and even engaging students so that they know from the beginning that more food is to be given to small children at a certain age. My key messages are the following. Infant and young child feeding practices, all of them need improvements. But complementary feeding in Indian children is a bigger problem and a huge problem and a static, non-improving problem. Complementary feeding is often delayed, is inadequate, and I believe it is a poorly recognized issue. A lot more on this can be done through the government programs, but creating a Jan Andolan and a peer pressure and a societal norm is the key. Researchers have a role to play to demonstrate that this can be done, and yes, it has been shown it can be done, and education of dietitians and other stakeholders who play a role in shaping the thoughts and the paradigm is also important, because this is conspicuously missing when I review and talk to concerned people. Well, with these words, my deep gratitude for the kind invitation, and I hope we have an important issue on which we can align ourselves. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
I have a practical problem. I have a granddaughter.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. That was a fascinating lecture. Also, I really appreciated your passion, because your passion to improve the feeding of young babies in India is clear from your lecture. You've taken us on a journey. You've told the story of malnutrition, child malnutrition in India in particular. I'm sorry? Oh, of course. Okay. So let me just wrap up. Dr. Paul has a call that he needs to take from the minister, and also we're going to have to wrap up because... should we just finish? Okay, very good. Okay. So as I was saying, I think, telling that story of stunting in India, and what we need to focus on is crucial. So from the perspective of the World Food Programme, I will be taking these lessons and these key messages back, because we work a lot in the area of complementary feeding through supporting take-home ration recipes, by supporting at the technical level on midday meals in various states. And of course, as Dr. Paul mentioned, it's all about changing behaviors, and we know how difficult and complex that can be. So I know that personally I will be asking for this presentation. It will inform our work at the World Food Programme, and let us all follow the advice that Dr. Paul gave in terms of how we could feed the babies better in India. I think I should wrap up because the minister is apparently going to join online.
Good morning, everybody. Namaskar, and a very hearty welcome, Minister, Union Minister for Women and Child Development and Minority Affairs, Srimati Smriti Zubin Irani. So kind of you to connect online. I know that you wanted to be with us, and we were really looking forward to welcoming you to the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. But despite all of your other heavy pressures on your time, ma'am, we are very happy that you've connected with us online. We've just had a brilliant lecture by Dr. Vinod Paul, Member NITI Aayog, analyzing the data on child nutrition and talking really about complementary feeding and the areas in which there is good scope for improvement, looking at the data that we have and the progress that we've made so far. Ma'am, you're a huge advocate for women's empowerment, gender equality, as well as the care of the young child. And recently at the Women's 20, the G20 for Women, you spoke compellingly about India's journey on a women-led development pathway, and I think that's really where we can make a huge difference, and that's exactly what your ministry is doing. So I would like to request you now to make your keynote remarks for this conference that's focusing on millets, but we're looking at all aspects of millets from farmers. We had a number of farmers speak yesterday on cultivation, the challenges they face, and what kind of policy support could help farmers do better, do more, how they've managed to improve yields. We recognized 25 farmers, men and women, yesterday, and grassroots entrepreneurs who've done amazing work with millets. These people came from around the country. They were inducted as fellows of the National Virtual Academy. And we also have a room full of scientists, academics, students, farmers, as well as international participants for this conference. And we look forward to hearing from you, ma'am. Over to you.
Good morning to all who have gathered at this international conference on Mighty Millets. When I say millets, I think Shri Anna. Can something which is denoted with the word Shri be called mighty? I guess not. It is looked upon as a food which is benevolent, for it is sustainable, for it is nourishing, and it is a harbinger of sustainable change. I would like to extend my compliments to Mrs. Swaminathan and Soumyaji for inviting me to the discourse today, which is centered around food, nutrition, and health security. But when one speaks of health security, one should not be restrained and believe that it is only the security of the individual health that millet concerns itself with, that it is equally dedicated to the health of the soil, to the health of the ecology, is something I'm sure this conference and those who participate in it are reflecting upon. I would like to begin with a note of salutation to M S Swaminathan, not as the United Nations declares him the father of economic ecology, but as my erstwhile colleague in the Rajya Sabha. As a first-time Rajya Sabha member, when you're barely in your early 30s, it is quite an educative engagement when your senior colleague is M S Swaminathan. For he teaches you not only about ecology, He teaches you about rights of women vis-a-vis land. He teaches you about your agrarian history and the prospect of agriculture and agro-processing and how it can contribute to a resilient economy. And I'm hopeful through the foundation, the life lessons and the administrative lessons of M S Swaminathan is of great value, not only to people who have gathered in this room today, but also those who are yet to receive the information from the life and the works of M S Swaminathan. That being said, as we all know, that the year 2023 has been declared the year of millets by the UN General Assembly in its 75th session in March 2021. And we are also aware that when we speak of the issue of millets, as my colleague Vinod Paul has spoken on complementary feeding, there are many aspects of our daily nutrition that millets can be centered around. Unfortunately, one of the greatest challenges is the procurement of millets in the government systems for more and more in the farm ecology and economy have to be inundated with requests to enhance production, and states have to be compelled to ensure that procurement complements the need that is generated through programs such as Poshan Abhiyan. I would like the audience to consider this. Activities undertaken by the Ministry of Women and Child Development have incessantly and consistently demanded that millets be infused in early childhood nutritional care. To that effect, in the year 2018, an advisory was issued to all states and union territories to incorporate millets in recipes to enhance the nutritional quality of meals provided under supplementary nutrition program of the Anganwadi systems. Under Poshan Abhiyan, we have directed that mandatorily, at least once a week, millets become a part of the diet of the children in hot cooked meals and take home ration. We all know that the Prime Minister has been insistent on Jan Bhagidari, that it become a people's movement when we talk about the use of millets. And hence, to promote the use of millets under Poshan Abhiyan, particularly since 2021, close to 2 crore activities have been undertaken across the nation to popularize the need for millets and the use of millets as a part of our nutritional security. For instance, in Poshan Ma, the month of September 2021, close to 290,000 demonstration of cooking with millets was held across the country. Many administratively felt, why would people flock to such demonstrations? And when we organized the Poshan Pakhwada in March 2022, we saw that the numbers rose exponentially, so much so that in the following March of 2022, demonstrations increased to the size of 636, which means that people's response to millets and demonstrations of recipes at the grassroots found much traction. And in the year 2023, in Poshan Pakhwada, that being March 2023, millets became the central theme of Jan Bhagidari. States reported close to 1 crore activities in March 2023 alone. What were these activities? Across Anganwadi's recipe competitions on millets, close to 11 lakh such competitions, awareness amongst adolescent girls about the nutritional benefit of millets, close to 9 lakh such activities, close to 8 lakh activities only with regards to home visits by Anganwadi workers to raise awareness of millets, especially amongst lactating mothers. We called for a millet panchayat, and close to 5 lakh millet panchayats took place all over the country in March 2023. Additionally, school-based millet fairs were held across the country and 27,000 such fairs were held. Hence, the demand in this year has exponentially risen. But I'm sure, as Soumya has said, that you have brought together in this conference those who farm millets, those who process millets. And today, what a better day for us to engage on how to enhance the use of millets, not only in school, not only through activities of the Poshan Abhiyan across Anganwadis, but also ensure that the use of millets in everyday life by citizens galore can be exponentially enhanced. As a consequence of Prime Minister's leadership to ensure support to the millet supply chain and value chain, I am sure you know that currently a submission of the National Food Security Program is underway in 28 states and 2 union territories. Additionally, a production-linked incentive scheme for the food processing industry for millet-based products has been allocated 800 crores by the government. I am hopeful that those who have gathered here today on the issue of agro-processing of millet-based products can also speak about the production-linked incentive schemes to farmers and agro-processors in the food processing industry for enhancing the production and the market for millet-based products. Many of you, possibly who have gathered here today, know that the Agricultural Fund Scheme, Infra Scheme, has today received an allocation which will help provide support to FPOs, farmers and entrepreneurs up to a value of 2 crore rupees with interest subvention, especially for setting up primary processing units in Sri Anna. I hope that government interventions that can add economic value to the production and processing of millets can also become a part of deliberations in these conferences. I can assure Soumya ji through your kind offices, if there are members of the audience who would like more information as to how to gain traction or for that matter engage with the government on PLI scheme or the Agricultural Infrastructure Enhancement Fund scheme, my offices are more than happy to provide that information and amalgamate efforts with the concerned ministries so that the takeaways from this conference are extremely productive to those who come here to support millets. I am aware of the intervention by Dr. Paul with regards to complementary feeding. When it comes to excellence, the sky is the limit. I must here say that before the intervention of Poshan Abhiyan, the Government of India on the issue of Anganwadis and ICDS program, which began in the decade of 1970s, before the year 2017, did not even have a separate budget head for water supply and sanitation facilities in Anganwadis in our country. What Poshan Abhiyan got was an increased focus by the Prime Minister on issue of nutrition in Anganwadi systems, sanitation facilities, and also an introduction of technology to ensure children under the age of 6 and pregnant and lactating women can be supported through not only supplementary nutrition, not only health support through our Anganwadi and Asha workers ecosystem, but also cash transfers became an integral part of the government's enhanced focus on nutrition. Today, I can happily say that through the Poshan Tracker, 10 crore beneficiaries, children under the age of 6, pregnant and lactating women, are covered technologically, and last mile delivery of services is now available across the country. 7.5 crore children under the age of 6, in fact, were measured every month And in the month of March, in the last 15 days of March, the measurements as per WHO standards brought forth some staggering results. Ladies and gentlemen who have gathered today, if you reflect on the details of the National Family Health Survey, which has a sample size of 6 lakh families, the stunting and malnutrition figure there are staggering, up to 19%. However, with a sample size of 7.5 crore children, that number came down by 12% in March 2023 alone. The fact that technology now allows us to amalgamate and analyze data on larger sample sizes and with alacrity and analytics helps us deep dive into the regional disparity that we see in data and the demographic dividend that such disaggregated data can bring to the table of analysts also helps enhance government intervention. Possibly, Dr. Paul did not have access to the numbers, for if he even saw the numbers for Poshan in 2022, he would have known that 55 lakh activities were undertaken across the country for complementary feeding alone. The issue, apart from government intervention, is that of societal knowledge that more and more young mothers need to be engaged with on eating habits that can help ingrain in a child a life cycle of better nutritional choices. I hope also finds reflection in the excellent talent that we have gathered in the audience today. Soumyaji, before I leave, I would like to here highlight that the targeted public distribution system and the ICDS and midday meal procurement by government has exponentially enhanced. And when I say this, I today am in the receipt of over 1 lakh metric ton of demands from states. The issue is that while we are pushing the need to incorporate more and more millets into our eating systems, how many more in our agrarian society are we able to encourage to incorporate it in their cropping systems? How many more such individual enterprises are coming up to process this, which is known as a sustainable agro procedure, process and grain, the smart food, not only of now, but also the future. The fact that millets are good for those who are afflicted by diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, are facts which are known, but ultimately, till such time, a comprehensive effort is not made between enterprise, health sector, and those who implement the government's resolve on the ground, the traction that is desired on Shri Anna will be left much to be desired. That the Prime Minister himself pushes the agenda of millets, not only domestically but also internationally. That be it the G20 or the Prime Minister's visits to the United States and a G2G in the United States, bearing up with millet-based recipes at the White House. Much is being done now on behalf of the government, that societal leaders, Soumyaji, such as yourself and the M S Swaminathan Foundation, are also walking shoulder to shoulder on this path, brings much hope. I wish the conference well. Knowing the Swaminathan family, it will be action-oriented, it will be result-based. My gratitude that you have not only found favor with farmers, but you have also felicitated those who have indulged in best practices of millet. The future is sustainable, hence the future belongs to Shri Anna. Compliments for the conference.
Thank you so much, Minister Smriti Irani ji. I think in your short intervention, you have really captured the spirit of this conference. End-to-end need to focus on not only just eating of millets, but the production, and also highlighted for us the various schemes of government and the initiatives that your ministry as well as others are taking to make this a reality. And as you mentioned, it is the Prime Minister's vision and dream. So thank you so much for your time, for sharing your insights and as well as your guidance. And I'm sure that everyone here has been really inspired and energized by what you have said, and we will certainly take it forward. And as you said, we'll come back to your ministry for any clarification. I'm sure there are many here in the audience who are going to want to take your advice further and use the government's incentives and encouragement to take millets to a higher level. So thank you so much, Minister Smriti Irani. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
So thank you all. We will break for tea now and then reassemble for the next session.